Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive today, all about better communication. We'll be taking a look at 21 Days to Effective Communication by Ian Tuhovsky.
Sounds good. It's a great book.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into this one. It's basically like a crash course for improving your communication skills in all areas of life.
Definitely. And it's super practical. The book is packed with actionable strategies.
Right, it's not just theory. It's about giving you tools you can actually use. So we're not going to go through all 21 days in detail.
Right.
But we will pull out the most important points.
Yeah.
And to help us do that, we've got an expert on communication here with us today.
Happy to be here. Communication is so crucial, and this book really lays it all out.
Yeah, so the book starts off with week 1, laying the groundwork.
Right.
And this is where Tuhovsky really dives into the importance of self-awareness.
Yeah, before you even start thinking about talking to other people,
Right.
he says you got to understand yourself first.
That makes sense. It's like you can't build a house without a strong foundation.
Exactly. He actually uses that analogy in the book.
Oh, wow. So what does he say we need to understand about ourselves first?
Well, he says self-awareness is like the foundation of a house.
Mm-hmm.
If it's weak, everything else built on top of it is going to be unstable.
I can see that.
So you want to make sure you understand your own communication patterns, your strengths, your weaknesses.
Okay.
Even those little emotional triggers that we all have that sometimes lead to misunderstandings.
Oh, yeah, those triggers. Those are tricky. I know I have a few of those.
We all do, and that's okay. The key is to be aware of them so you can manage them.
Right. Because if you don't know your triggers,
Exactly.
you might react in a way that you later regret.
Exactly. You might overreact to something or misinterpret what someone's saying.
And then the whole conversation goes off the rails.
It can definitely escalate things unnecessarily.
So how does he suggest we go about identifying our triggers?
Well, one of the first things he has readers do is kind of like a deep dive into understanding their emotional filters.
Emotional filter.
Yeah. So these are like the ways that our emotions sometimes distort the way we interpret messages from other people.
Okay, so like if I'm already feeling stressed about something,
Exactly.
I might be more likely to take something someone says the wrong way.
Exactly. You might see criticism where none was intended.
Right. So understanding those filters can really change the way we communicate.
Absolutely. It can help you see things more objectively.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So recognizing your emotional filters is like the first step.
It's a big one.
But then how do we actually manage those reactions?
Well, Tuhovsky provides a lot of practical techniques for that.
Yeah.
It's really about becoming more mindful of your emotions and how they influence the way you communicate with others.
So being present in the moment.
Exactly. Noticing how you're feeling and why.
Okay. And he suggests journaling, right? As a way to track those emotions.
He does, yeah. He encourages you to take a few minutes every day to think back on your conversations.
Interesting. So it's like a reflection process.
Exactly. Think about what went well. What could have been better? Were there any moments where you felt misunderstood or you may have misunderstood someone else?
That's a good idea. I could see how that would be helpful.
Yeah, even just jotting down a few thoughts after a conversation can really bring things to light.
For sure. So in just week 1, we're already laying the groundwork for better communication by understanding our communication style and identifying our triggers.
Exactly. We're building that solid foundation.
But how do we actually put that self-awareness into practice?
That's where week 2 comes in, leveling up your skills.
Okay, so week 2 is where the rubber meets the road.
It is.
We move from understanding ourselves to understanding and connecting with others.
Exactly. And it's really all about action.
I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's the first skill we're leveling up?
The big focus of week 2 is active listening.
Active listening. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? I mean, we all listen, don't we?
We do. But there's a big difference between passively hearing words and truly actively listening.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Think about a time when you were talking to someone and you could tell they weren't really paying attention.
Oh, yeah. I hate when that happens. It's like talking to a wall.
Exactly. You feel completely ignored.
Yeah, it's the worst.
But when someone actively listens to you, it makes you feel heard and understood.
It does. You feel like you're actually connecting with that person.
Exactly. And that connection prevents misunderstandings. And that's so important for any relationship.
Okay, so active listening is about being present and engaged. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, there are some specific techniques you can use. One of the simplest and most effective is paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing. Okay, so like repeating back what the other person said.
Sort of, but you're summarizing it in your own words.
Oh, okay. So it's not just parroting them back.
No.
Yeah.
It shows them you're really listening, and it gives them a chance to clarify if you've missed something.
I can see how that would be helpful.
Yeah.
But I imagine it could be challenging in certain situations, like when you're in a heated debate
That's a great point. But Tuhovsky emphasizes that paraphrasing isn't about agreeing with the person. It's about making sure you're both on the same page.
Okay.
So even if you disagree with them, you can still paraphrase what they said to make sure you understand their perspective.
Okay, so it takes the pressure off having to agree.
Exactly.
And it focuses on understanding first.
Exactly. And he even suggests using phrases like, let me see if I'm understanding you correctly.
Okay.
Or, so what you're saying is...
Right, so you're signaling that you're trying to understand.
Exactly, even if you don't necessarily agree.
Okay, so that's paraphrasing. What else is there?
Another technique he highlights is asking clarifying questions.
Ooh, so instead of just nodding and saying,
Right.
you should actually be asking questions.
Yes. Questions that dig a little deeper and encourage the speaker to elaborate.
Okay, so what kind of questions are we talking about?
You can ask things like, can you tell me more about that? Or what do you mean by? These questions show the speaker that you're genuinely interested.
Right, you're not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. You're engaged.
Okay, so asking clarifying questions is another way to level up our listening skills.
Yes. And it can help prevent misunderstandings, too.
I can see that because sometimes
Right.
people might dance around a topic without directly addressing the real issue.
Exactly. And clarifying questions can help bring those underlying issues to the surface.
Okay, so we've got paraphrasing and clarifying questions.
Right.
But there's more to active listening than just words,
Right.
What about nonverbal communication?
Absolutely. Our body language, our tone of voice, even our facial expressions can communicate volumes.
Sometimes even more than our words.
Right. It's true. You could be saying all the right things, but if your body language is sending a different message,
Right.
it's going to create confusion and mistrust.
Yeah, that makes sense. So active listening is like a full body experience.
I like how you put that. It engages your mind, your heart, your body.
Okay, so we've got to be present, engaged, ask the right questions, and pay attention to those nonverbal cues.
It's a package deal.
Okay, got it. Active listening is officially at the top of my list of communication skills to master.
It's a good one. And Tuhovsky says when you become a good active listener, you unlock a whole new level of understanding in your conversations.
Really? Wow, okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
And it sounds like active listening is just one of the many tools he gives us in week 2.
It is. He also talks about empathy, using the right tone of voice, and even storytelling.
Storytelling. I'm curious about that one. What does he say about that?
Well, he gives this great example of a manager who was trying to explain a new company policy to his team.
Okay.
And instead of just reading the policy aloud, which would have been super boring, he told a story to make it more engaging and relatable.
I love that. So what kind of story did he tell?
He talked about a time when he had experienced a similar situation in a previous job and how this new policy would have prevented a major problem.
Ooh, smart. So he connected the policy to a real-life experience.
Exactly. Brought it to life.
That makes a lot of sense. And stories have a way of sticking with you.
They do. They make things more memorable. And Tuhovsky argues that storytelling is a really powerful tool for connecting with people on an emotional level.
I can see that. So week 2 is like a communication toolbox filled with all these practical skills and techniques.
It is.
But where do we go from there?
Week 3 is all about mastering the art of connection.
Okay, so we're moving beyond the basics.
We are. We're getting into more advanced territory.
Like what? Give me an example.
Building trust, navigating difficult conversations, resolving conflicts, even persuasion.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is. But it's also incredibly rewarding.
It's like the communication equivalent of going from running a 5K to training for a marathon.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And just like training for a marathon, week 3 requires a solid foundation.
Right. You can't just jump into a marathon without training first.
Exactly. And you can't master these advanced communication skills without first developing that self-awareness and those core communication techniques from the first 2 weeks.
So it all builds on itself.
It does. Each week is like a stepping stone.
Okay. So what makes these week 3 skills so advanced?
Well, they require not just mastering specific techniques, but also a deeper understanding of human emotions.
Okay.
Motivations, those unspoken dynamics at play in our interactions.
It sounds like emotional intelligence plays a big role here.
Absolutely. Tuhovsky really emphasizes that
Okay.
building trust navigating conflict, persuading others effectively.
Yeah.
It all requires a high level of emotional intelligence.
So it's not just about knowing the right words to say.
It's about reading between the lines, understanding unspoken emotions, and responding in a way that strengthens relationships rather than damaging them.
Right, so it's about being in tune with both your own internal world and the emotional landscape of your interactions.
Exactly. It's a lot to juggle, but when you master those skills, it can really transform the way you communicate.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So tell me, what are some of the specific skills he teaches in week 3?
Well, we have build trust, which is all about establishing credibility, demonstrating reliability, and showing empathy.
Okay. So if you don't have those things, it's going to be hard to build trust with anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trust is the foundation of any strong relationship.
Makes sense. What else is there?
He also talks about reading between the lines, which is all about paying attention to those nonverbal cues.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Right.
It's like that secret language everyone speaks.
It is. And Tuhovsky gives you the tools to decode it.
I'm definitely going to need those tools.
Okay.
What else?
Handling difficult conversations is a big one.
Ugh, those are the worst. I always try to avoid them.
I think most people do.
Yeah.
But Tuhovsky gives you a framework for approaching those conversations with compassion, clarity, and a focus on finding solutions.
Okay, that sounds a lot better than my current strategy of just running away.
It is. And then there's conflict resolution, which is essential for any healthy relationship.
Yeah, conflict is inevitable.
It is.
But it's how we handle it that matters.
Exactly. And Tuhovsky gives you a step-by-step process for navigating conflict effectively.
Oh, I like that. A step-by-step process. I can handle that.
Oh.
Okay, what else?
And finally, there's persuasion, which is a skill that can be used for good or for evil.
Ooh, that's a powerful one.
It is. But Tuhovsky focuses on ethical persuasion.
Okay, so no mind control tricks.
No, it's about influencing others in a way that respects their autonomy and benefits both parties.
Okay, so it's about win-win situations.
Exactly.
Wow, week 3 is packed.
Yeah.
It sounds like a communication boot camp.
It kind of is, but in a good way. It's challenging, but also empowering.
I'm ready for the challenge.
Yeah.
So let's dive into those week 3 skills.
Let's do it. I think you'll find them fascinating.
I'm sure I will. But before we do that,
Okay.
let's just quickly recap the 3 key takeaways from the book so far.
Sounds good.
Number 1, communication is a two-way street. It's not just about expressing yourself.
Right.
It's also about understanding and connecting with others. Number 2, listening is crucial. Active listening is just as important as speaking clearly.
It is.
And number 3, nonverbal communication matters. Our body language, our tone, our facial expressions all speak volumes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I'd add that effective communication is about more than just mastering techniques. It's about cultivating a mindset of empathy, respect, and a genuine desire to connect with others.
I like that. When you approach communication from that place, you're already starting off on the right foot.
You are. You're building a strong foundation for those meaningful relationships.
So it's not just about the words we say, it's about the intention behind them.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to move on to the fascinating world of week 3.
Okay, I'm ready. When you are.
Let's go.
All right, let's dive in.
Week 3. It's where things get really interesting. It's all about mastering the art of connection.
Okay, so we're taking those skills we learned in the first 2 weeks and putting them into practice.
Exactly. We're moving beyond the basics. So what's the first challenge we're tackling in week 3?
Well, Tuhovsky starts by talking about building trust.
Okay, trust. That's huge.
It is. It's the foundation of any strong relationship.
So how do we go about building trust?
He breaks it down into 3 key elements.
Okay, let's hear them.
Credibility, reliability, and empathy.
Okay, those make sense. Credibility is about believing what someone says.
Exactly. You got to walk the walk.
And reliability is about knowing you can count on someone.
Right. If they say they'll do something, they do it.
But I'm curious about the empathy piece. How does that fit into trust?
Well, think about it. If someone shows you they understand your perspective and care about your feelings, you're much more likely to trust them.
That's true. You feel seen and heard.
Exactly. And Tuhovsky gives you some really concrete ways to show empathy in your communication.
Okay, so it's not just about saying, I understand.
No, it's about really listening, reflecting back what you're hearing, and asking questions.
Right, to show you're really trying to get it.
Exactly. You're trying to walk in their shoes.
Okay, I like that. So we've got trust. What's next?
Next up is a skill he calls reading between the lines.
Oh, okay, that sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
It's about understanding that unspoken language we all use.
Oh, like body language and tone of voice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also about recognizing the things people don't say.
Oh, okay. So like the subtext.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about picking up on those subtle cues.
So it's like being a detective.
Kind of. You're looking for clues.
So what kind of clues should we be looking for?
Well, body language is a big one. Is the person making eye contact?
Oh.
Are they fidgeting or leaning away?
Right. Those nonverbal signals can tell you a lot.
They can reveal what someone's really feeling.
Even if their words are saying something different.
Exactly. So you got to pay attention to the whole picture.
Okay, so body language is one thing. But what about those things people don't say? How do you figure those out?
Well, it's partly about paying attention to the context.
Okay, the context. So like the relationship between the people.
Right, and the overall tone of the conversation.
Okay, so it's about putting the pieces together.
Exactly, like a puzzle.
I like it.
Yeah.
So we've got trust. We've got reading between the lines. What's next?
Now we're getting to the tough stuff. Handling difficult conversations.
Ooh, yeah, those are never fun.
They're not, but they're a part of life.
So how do we make them less painful?
Well, the first thing Tuhovsky says is to choose the right time and place.
Okay, so don't ambush someone with a difficult conversation.
No, definitely not. You want to create a safe space.
Right, a space where everyone feels comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once you've got that space,
Uh-huh.
the next step is to approach the conversation with compassion and clarity.
Compassion and clarity. Okay, so no yelling and screaming.
No, you want to be calm and respectful.
Right. Use I statements.
Exactly, and be specific about your concerns.
So the other person knows exactly what we're talking about.
And remember, the goal is to find a solution,
Uh-huh.
not to win an argument.
Exactly. It's about collaboration.
Okay, I like that. But what if the other person just won't listen? That's where those active listening skills come in handy.
Okay, so even when it's tough,
Especially when it's tough.
you got to really listen.
You do, even if you disagree.
Okay, I can try that.
And sometimes the resolution might not be what you wanted.
Right. Sometimes you have to compromise.
You do. But if you can come out of the conversation with a better understanding of each other,
Uh-huh.
that's a win.
Okay, I can see that. So we've tackled trust, reading between the lines, and difficult conversations. What's left?
The last skill in week 3 is persuasion.
Persuasion.
Ooh, that's a powerful one.
It is. But remember, Tuhovsky is all about ethical persuasion.
Right, so no manipulating people.
No. It's about influencing others in a way that respects them and benefits everyone involved.
Okay, so it's a win-win situation.
Exactly. And he breaks persuasion down into 3 elements.
Okay, what are they?
Logic, emotion, and credibility.
Okay, so you need a sound argument.
Right. You got to back up your claims with evidence.
But you also need to connect with people on an emotional level? Exactly. That's where storytelling comes in.
Oh, yeah. Stories are so powerful.
They are. They make things more memorable and relatable.
And credibility is about being trustworthy.
Right. People need to believe in you.
So it's not just about what you say.
No, it's about who you are.
Wow, week 3 is intense. It's like a masterclass in communication.
It is. But it's also really empowering.
I'm feeling empowered already.
Good, because these skills can really change your life.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest takeaway from week 3?
I think it's that communication is a journey.
Uh-huh. It's not a destination.
Exactly. You're always learning and growing.
And that's exciting.
It is. It keeps things interesting.
Well, I'm excited to keep learning. So what's next?
I think it's time to wrap things up and give our listeners some final thoughts.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. So we made it to week 3 of Tuhovsky's 21 Days to Effective Communication.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. We've covered so much ground, from self-awareness to active listening.
Right. From building trust to handling those tough conversations.
And even persuasion.
It's all about connection, right?
It is. It's about building those strong and healthy relationships in every part of our lives.
And this book gives you the tools to do it.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Before we wrap up, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What are your biggest takeaways from the book as a whole?
That's a good question. I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is that anyone can become a better communicator.
I like that. It's not something you're born with.
Exactly. It's a skill you can learn and improve with practice.
Like any other skill.
Right. And Tuhovsky really drives that point home.
He does. And he also emphasizes that communication is a two-way street.
Absolutely. It's not just about expressing yourself clearly.
Right. It's also about listening.
Yeah, really listening. Actively listening.
Seeking to understand the other person's perspective.
And being willing to compromise.
Right. Because sometimes you're not going to agree on everything.
And that's okay. The key is to find that common ground.
And to do that, you got to be willing to listen.
Exactly. You got to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
And speaking of putting yourself in someone else's shoes,
Yeah.
the book also highlights the importance of nonverbal communication.
Oh, absolutely. Body language, tone of voice.
Facial expressions.
It all matters.
It's like that secret language.
That we all speak, but...
Right. But not everyone understands.
Exactly. And Tuhovsky helps you decode that language.
So you can really understand what people are saying.
Even when they're not saying it out loud.
Wow. It's like a superpower.
It kind of is. And it's a superpower that anyone can develop.
I like that. So we've talked about the importance of self-awareness, active listening, nonverbal communication.
Right. All those key elements of effective communication.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up.
Okay, what's that?
Emotional intelligence.
Yes. The secret ingredient.
It is. You can't really master these skills without it.
You can't. You need that self-awareness. That ability to understand and manage your own emotions.
Right. And the emotions of others.
Exactly. It's about being in tune with that emotional landscape.
It's like having a sixth sense.
It is. It's about sensing those unspoken feelings and motivations.
Wow. So much to think about. It's been an amazing deep dive.
It has. We've covered so much ground.
We have. But before we say goodbye,
Okay.
is there one final thought-provoking question you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I would ask them this. If you could choose to master just one communication skill from this book, which one would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. It really makes you think.
It does. What skill would have the biggest impact on your life?
Yeah, that's the question.
And there's no right or wrong answer.
It's about what resonates with you.
Exactly. So take some time to reflect on that.
Yeah. Think about what you want to improve.
What would make the biggest difference in your relationships?
And in your life as a whole.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We've explored so much from 21 days to effective communication.
And I hope our listeners feel inspired to put these techniques into practice.
Me too. Because communication is the key to connection.
It is.
And connection is what makes life meaningful.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, happy communicating.